Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to focus on hosting an Ionic application using Netlify. If you're unfamiliar with Netlify, basically it is a Jamstack host or a static site host. I don't want to get too much into what Jamstack is and all of that in this video, but for our purposes, basically Netlify can host a static page, a static app. So since our Ionic applications are going to be basically just HTML, CSS, JavaScript running in the browser, we can host that on Netlify to serve it to users. The sort of key difference with Netlify versus other platforms or other more typical hosts, I guess, is that there isn't a sort of server component to it where you might have databases or Apache running or something like that. So the focus of this video is going to be getting an Ionic application built and deployed to Netlify as quickly as possible. And that is sort of one of their selling features, how sort of quick their process is. There's continuous integration as part of the process, so we can easily link it up to some kind of Git repository and just have it automatically build and deploy for us. So I'm going to try to take a little bit of a casual pace for this video. I'm not going to try to break any world records or anything like that, but I'm going to make this a little bit fun. We'll have a little stopwatch running. We're going to generate a new Ionic and StencilJS application, and then we're going to deploy it and see how long it takes from start to finish. And so as I just mentioned, this will be a StencilJS application. So if you're using something different, the steps may vary a little bit. But with a few tweaks, you should be able to get this working, no matter if you're using Angular or React or whatever else. Okay, so with that little bit of explanation out of the way, let's start the clock. So first, we're going to generate a new stencil application. So I'll run npm init stencil. We're going to select Ionic PWA. And I'm just going to call this Ionic Stencil Netlify. We're not actually going to add anything to this application. Just for fun, we'll serve it though, just to make sure everything works, and it will help if I actually change to the directory first. So we'll check if that runs in the browser. I'm sure it will. Let's bring up the dev tools as well. Okay, so there is our application. We've finished coding our application now. We're going to deploy it. So let's take a look at what sort of steps that involves now. So all we need to do basically to get this working with Netlify is to add a couple files or make a few changes. So what I'm going to do now is open this up in Visual Studio Code. You can use whatever you like, obviously. And now I've just opened the stencil.config.ts file, which we'll need to make use of in a second to include a new file that we need to add to our application. And what we're going to do is add a new file under the source directory called redirects. And basically this redirects file needs to be included in the root folder of your application of whatever's being deployed. And so what will be eventually deployed to Netlify is this www folder. So that is where this redirect file needs to be added. This www folder gets regenerated with every build, so we can't add it directly to that. Instead, we're going to add it to the source directory, which will keep the file in our project, and then we're going to modify this config here to include that redirect file in our build. So all this redirect file needs to do is, this is a file specific for Netlify. So what we want to say is to redirect all routes to index.html, and we want that to have a status code, HTTP status code of 200. So the reason we do this is if we, for example, go to our app /profile/5 or whatever, it's going to look for an actual static file hosted at that address called, say, 5.html, for example. And now obviously our application doesn't have those pages. It's a single page application, and the index.html file routes all of the requests. So what we're saying basically is for any route, for any request, redirect it through the index.html file, and the status code here basically just says it's an OK status code. So That's just saying this is a successful request. So we'll save that. Now we need to get that copied into our build directory, which is the www folder. So to do that, we can add the copy command, which we can provide an array. And all we need to do here is provide source and then the name of the file, which is redirects, and that should copy that over for us. To check that that works, and we need to sort of do this anyway to make sure everything's working, we can just run the build command. So for StencilJS, that's npm run build. So we'll do that, make sure this is all working. So as this is building, that's going to be generating a production version of the application in this www folder. And now with this change, it should also copy over our redirects file. So now if we go into our www folder, we can see that that redirects file has been included in the build, which is exactly what we want. So the application is done now. There's nothing else we need to do to make this compatible with Netlify. So what we're going to do now is get this deployed to GitHub, because that is where the Netlify website is going to pull in our files from. It doesn't have to be through GitHub. It doesn't even have to be through Git, but this is a particularly sort of nice way to do it. So what I'm going to do is say git init, git add all, git commit, initial commit. And obviously this means you will need to have Git set up on your computer. If you haven't done that already, I think I have a video on that, but if not, you'll find stuff on Git everywhere. So now we need to create a repository. So go along to GitHub or Bitbucket or wherever you want to do that. Create a new repository. Again, I'll just call this Ionic Stencil Netlify. I'll create that repository. And I made this public, but perhaps you'd want to make yours private if it's your own sort of website. And so now I'm just going to copy these commands to get everything pushed up to GitHub here. Okay, so that's done. Let's check that that code is all in here, and yes, it is. You'll see we don't actually have the www folder committed. That is going to get built by Netlify on the fly. So now we can go to our Netlify account. I already got an account set up with Netlify here, but simple enough. Go create an account with them, go through whatever steps you need, get to your main dashboard, and you'll be able to click new site from Git. So we'll do that. We'll choose GitHub. I've already authorized GitHub, so that just goes straight through for me, but you'll probably have to click an extra button and then search for the repository that you want to use. And that's the one we just pushed, so I'll choose that. And now we want to deploy the master branch. You might not want to deploy the master branch. You can change this if you want, but that works. We'll deploy from master, and the build command, that's just going to be whatever you use to create a production build of your Ionic application. So for Stencil, that was npm run build. It might be something different depending on what framework you're using. And the published directory is just the folder where that built output gets generated. And for this instance, that is going to be the www folder that we were talking about. So with that all set up, click deploy site, and we are pretty much done. So you can see here, it says site deploy in progress. We got to that step at 7 minutes, 8 minutes we'll say, with a whole bunch of explaining along the way as well. So at this point, all we need to do is sit around and wait for it to finish. Usually it takes a few minutes to go through this process, but for the sake of curiosity and seeing how long it takes, I'll wait around and we will take a look at the live site and see how long that takes. Okay, so I just had a couple sips of my coffee here, refreshed, and I can see that it is already finished, which is fantastic. So take a look, 9 minutes. In total, 9 minutes, 15 seconds, we will say. So now we have this link here to our Netlify app. You can, of course, set up your own custom domains and things like that. but you will be able to see your site. So I'll just click there. And there we go. There is our beautiful Ionic and Stencil application live on the internet. You could probably go to this URL if you're watching this video and check it out, but I'll probably have deleted it by then anyway. But yeah, basically this is public for everyone to see right now, and for a process that took 9 minutes and 15 seconds total, even with me explaining a bunch of stuff along the way, that's pretty cool. So if it wasn't for me talking through this all, maybe 5 minutes, something like that, you could get this done. And now the cool thing about this is anytime we make a change, we can say, let me actually do it here. I'm gonna change something. Let's say this app home component, say welcome to my cool app. Now all we need to do is push that change. So if I run git status, you'll be able to see that that file has changed. So then I'll just run git add all, git commit m, changed welcome message, and then git push. So that's going to push that to my Git repository, and that's going to automatically trigger a new build. So if I refresh this now, you can see that we have another build enqueued here. And so that's just going to run through that build process again. It's going to run npm run build to generate the www folder with our built application. Once all that's done, it is going to host it, deploy it, and we will be able to see the update. So again, I'll wait around and show you just what that looks like. Maybe I'll have time to have a little bit more of my coffee whilst we wait. Okay, so you can see now it's at the building stage. If I click on that, you can actually see all the commands it's running. So you can see here, executing user command npm run build, which then triggers a stencil build, which is what that script sort of triggers. Now you can see it's going through the stencil build that you'd be used to seeing in the terminal. So there's not really any particular need to look at this deploy log, but it is just interesting. And if things go wrong, you can sort of peek in here and see what happened. Okay, so it's just finished building and uploading. So it says it's published there now. So let's just go and click on this again. And we should be able to see that it now says, welcome to my cool app, instead of whatever it said before. And that's, again, now live at this URL. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video. I use Netlify for a lot of my things that I host. I host my website and a few apps that I have up. This isn't a sponsored video or anything like that. I just think it's a cool tool, very easy to use, and yeah, clearly you can get things deployed very quickly. And it's also nice being able to update your application really easily as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.